Hello. Okay, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk about the best glide bait no one is using, which is the Double H MIR and MIR Jr. 100% the swim baits I recommend anyone and everyone buy as their first and perhaps last glide bait for several reasons. First, this bait is extremely stable and predictable on the glide. I can't emphasize how important this is to a new glide bait angler, how quickly it lets you gain confidence on the water. And a lot of baits have decent action, but they require very specific inputs to achieve that action. And if you can't see the bait in the water, it's almost impossible to get them to swim in an optimal way. Take the Klash 9 in glide mode for instance. Obviously a proven bait, but once I lose visual contact with the K9, all bets are off. 40% of the time it'll foul itself on the front hooks. Just a very finicky cadence that's difficult to maintain if you lose sight of the bait itself. The TK is not even worth mentioning in glide mode. I only use it as a dead walking bait period. Now the mirror in both sizes will methodically cut left and right with zero hiccups regardless of your input strength or timing. It is simply extremely forgiving in terms of how you work the bait, and you never have to see it to perfectly visualize what it's doing in the water. I might foul the front hooks once every 3 or 4 days with the mirror, and I'm almost never in visual contact with that bait since I throw it in very murky and muddy water all the time. So yeah, this smallie lost his mind chasing down the big mirror, and as you saw, you can chop this thing aggressively as well as really slow it down and bump it gently with the reel handle. You'll see some of that finesse glide baiting action later in this video. But now let's go underwater and take a look at both the MIR and MIR Jr. on the swim. So one unique thing about the MIR in both sizes is how well it dives to depth, almost as if it has a diving bill. A few hard cuts of the reel handle and the full-size MIR is down over 5 feet, while the MIR Jr can get to 4 feet. Now couple this ability to dive, not sink, but actually dive, with the slow float rate out of the box, which lets you easily tune the MIR to sink, suspend, or my favorite setup, which is a super slow float, and it's easily one of the most versatile glide baits on the market. Now check out how fluid that action is, especially on the full-size MIR. Very stable glides, not a lot of vertical pitch unless you wanted to make it dive. Otherwise it stays very flat as it turns left and right. And notice how smooth that motion is. It's not this lurching right and left you see in so many glide baits. The glide starts at the line tie in the nose. The head turns and brings the tail along, which then straightens out, and if you balance your bait correctly, it just hangs there without any fuss for the longest time. Now this bait wants to stay pointed in the same direction until the next input, but even if the nose starts wandering off and you mistime the next input, it just switches cadence effortlessly. No blowing out, no fouling, just staying in action the entire retrieve, whether you can keep tabs on it visually or not. Now in contrast, check out the Klash 9 in glide mode. One of my favorite baits and probably more proven than any other ABS swim bait on the market. But compared to the MIR, there is a lot of vertical movement up and down. The head wants to dive even on the lightest inputs, then the tail bounces up and down to compensate as well. Most importantly, if you can't see this bait to time your inputs correctly, that head starts to wander off, as you can see right here. Okay, let's watch that again. Left, right, left. What was that? What the hell just happened? I didn't bump the reel handle there. The K9 just decided it didn't want to keep turning left. And mind you, this is with me having eyes on the bait the entire time. I know people are going to say I'm just not skilled at controlling this particular glide bait, and they are undoubtedly correct in that assessment, but that just proves my point in how little skill you need to make the MIR swim like a champ. I mean, you can see how staccato and abrupt the motion is on the K9 compared to the MIR. The MIR is much more fluid and flowing through the water. Now, whether that makes a difference to the fish, I don't know, but it certainly gives me more confidence when I'm fishing the bait, and it's accounted for plenty of big fish over the last year and a half. One thing I will say about the DRT baits, they complement the MIRs perfectly. Usually they are the only two baits I have in the bag, the Tiny Klash or Klash 9 with the lip in as walking baits, and the MIR or MIR Jr as glide baits. Just an ideal 1-2 punch that doesn't involve waiting for some custom garage bait drop or paying 3 times retail to flippers. Okay, back to fishing. Now here the water is barely 40 degrees and the MIR, responding to such light and finessey inputs like we talked about earlier, can still trigger bites. And this is one of the cooler eats I've seen in a while. Get the fuck out of it. Yeah, that fish barely bumped the bait right at my feet, and letting that MIR just hang in front of his face was so key in getting that bite. Now let's talk gear. In my opinion, you need two setups. One for your TKs and MIR Juniors, which are 1.5 to 2 ounces, which for me is the Megabass Mark 56 paired to a Tatula 150 or 200, 16-pound sniper in freshwater, and PE2 braid to 18-pound sniper leader in saltwater. Now for the K9 and full-size mirrors, you're talking 3.5 to 4 ounce baits. I'm using the Megabass Valkyrie World Expedition 6.6 Extra Heavy, which is a 3-piece travel rod. Now I have that paired to the Tatula 300 and straight 18-pound sniper in freshwater and PE3 YGK to 20-pound sniper leader in saltwater. Now this video could very well be a review on the Valkyrie 6.6 Extra Heavy, a very unique rod that's fairly high in glass content. I'm pretty sure it's up to 30% glass, but the blank is very responsive and lively. And yeah, Megabass does nothing better than make moderate fast action rods for big moving baits, and both the Valkyrie and Mark 56 are no exceptions. For reels, the new Tatula 200 and 300 are just impossible to beat in terms of refinement and toughness. Unlike with spinning reels, I feel zero compulsion to spend more money than that on bait casting gear for big heavy baits. And there you go, another healthy bass. And man, it was cold that day. 3 years ago, I'd be dragging a jig or letting a jerkbait sit there for 40 seconds. But the drawing power of a big bait is real, even in this frigid water temperature. Okay, this might be out of left field for some of you, but we're not fishing for bass here. We're on a beach targeting summer flounder. Same rod reel bait setup, just braid to leader instead of straight fluorocarbon. There's quite a bit of current here as you can see, and there's also some wave action, but the MIR stays completely stable in this moving water. I think it would make an excellent river glide bait. Now with flounder, you must get close to the bottom. And though I set my MIR to float, even on these short casts just beyond the first break, I'm getting this bait to dive 5 to 6 feet down to draw their attention. And there it is, a nice fat flounder. If you find this interesting, my entire channel is mostly flounder content at this point. Watch me catch them on jigs, jerkbaits, crankbaits, spinnerbaits, and all kinds of swim baits. That's all I do from late spring to early fall, before I get back to fishing and experimenting in freshwater. Okay, now we're back at a lake, and this is a classic setup for an ambush. High vertical rock and my MIR gliding right along its edge. Yeah, these medium-sized pike will eat anything. I guess they are marginally cooler than a big pickerel, but honestly, I could do without any bycatch whatsoever, especially ones that can cut you off. Now, I've lost a lot of money to SOX over the years, but You still got to treat them as gently as you can. Just because a fish is a nuisance doesn't mean you get to be a dickhead. Now here I'm fishing a beautiful mudline, one of my favorite quote-unquote structures to fish on a lake. In fact, I hiked a long way just to get to this windblown side of the lake, and this is setting up perfectly. Sometimes you get that mudline that's pushed out too far, but here it's just a few feet from the shoreline and you can cast parallel against it. Fish will use this to ambush just like a hard piece of cover, especially when it's very clearly defined like this one is. Hello. Very healthy bass, and look how pale it is from living in that mud. Obviously, I can't see the MIR in this water until it's right at my feet, but because that glide is so predictable, I don't need to keep tabs on it at all. I just need to focus on how far I want the bait to travel and how long I want that bait to hang before turning. And if I happen to bump into a rock, I go slack and the bait will generally float back up to the top. Just the most user-friendly glide bait I've ever come across. And believe me, there are dozens of glide baits that people swear by sitting in a box at home that I never use anymore. Between the MIR and the DRT baits, I just don't see the need to branch out any further, especially with the limited time I have to fish big swim baits in the first place. And here's a MIR Jr clip. I know I've been focusing on the full-size MIR so far, but I probably caught more fish on the junior size. It's just that a lot of those clips were used in my Mark 56 review, so I didn't want to recycle them here, but this fish is certainly worth a second look. Now when it comes to smallmouth, I'm not really targeting them with big swim baits. I've caught some nice ones on big 4-ounce baits, but 95% of my smallies over 5 pounds came on tiny little 2 and 3 inch offerings, 5-pound fluoro type setups. I think outside of a handful of lakes in the country where smallies key in on big forage, the trophy-sized fish don't really key in on size the way largemouth do. I think if big baits consistently caught giant smallmouth, there'd be more evidence of that out there, and I just don't see it. Though I'm not complaining when a healthy 4-pound smallie takes a shot at my glide bait. In any case, here's another MIR Jr clip. I'll leave links to everything in the description below, but on both the TK and MIR Juniors in freshwater, I run Owner ST35s in size 1 and Gammy SP medium heavy wire trebles in size 2 when I fish in saltwater. Conveniently, these two hooks are exactly the same weight, so you can swap between them and not affect your bait's buoyancy. Now on the BIG MIR and Klash 9s, I run Gammy SP medium heavies in size 1s. Now as to where you can buy the double H MIRs, Gary at the Tackle Trap has them in stock, and they are the only US dealer for double H office. Once again, no affiliation with that shop, just massive respect for and friendship with Gary, who is an OG JDM tackle aficionado. And yeah, that's the most physical exertion I've done in the past few years. The only time I break a sweat these days is chasing down a flopping fish. But in any case, I hope you guys found this review helpful. And if you're looking to get into the big swim bait game, I hope I've convinced you to at least check out the MIR and MIR Juniors. These baits are easy to use and they just catch fish.